Yeah, hi team. So today we are going to see designing a release strategy. So this is our 10th session. So let's see what is the agenda for today. So for example, so far we have seen Azure boards, Azure repos, Azure build pipelines, and from today onwards, right? Maybe the next three sessions will be related to the release pipeline, and today we are going to see something at the very basic level, maybe how we can create the release pipeline using a maybe the classical editor, right? So because we have the two option, classical editor and then YAML pipeline. So the YAML pipeline is the pipeline as code approach. So this is somewhat advanced, but today we are going to see the classical editor only, and then deploying any one of the .NET or React application from our Azure DevOps to and then Azure platform. Okay, and then we are just going to see some overview about the release pipeline. So just for a basic idea, and then what are the terminologies we need to know, and there is some diagram so that we are going to look at it, and then the demo. So I have created some dummy .NET application so that we have in already in repository, so we can just try to deploy that in the so into Azure services. Okay, so maybe the recap, right? So far the Azure boards, repos, pipelines. Okay, so the board we already know, that is for the agile planning, like the all the sprint scrum activities and all the task management, right? So everything it will be managed in the Azure board, so that is will be equivalent to the Jira and maybe other project management tool. And then Azure Repos, they are giving private and public repository both option, and even they are providing two types of source control also, like Git and then TFVC, the Team Foundation Version Control. So whatever you are convenient, maybe you can go ahead and choose that. But currently, right, the trend is going towards a Git, because that is the, so all the new projects, everyone, right, so they are going with Git. So if you're creating any new project, right, so that time, yeah, you can go ahead with Git. And maybe sometimes, right, you may want to work with TFS also, because now I'm seeing so much of projects, they are migrating from TFS and then Git. So at the time we need to know, so the TFS some kind of knowledge and all. And so this is what the Azure repos, and then how we are structuring the code, maybe how we can maybe the strategy something, right? So the last time we have see like a git flow, GitHub flow something. Maybe, yeah, maybe in the last before completing all the session, so we will try to see like the GitHub flow something, how we can implement it, and maybe how we can maybe promote the source code to maybe the one by one to the other environments like dev, QA, UAT and production. So some kind of, yeah, maybe the demo will see maybe the some sessions. And then the Azure pipelines. So in that Azure pipelines, we have tried to build the class library, so the last time. And then maybe the how we can configure the agent machine. So there are also two categories, right? Like self-hosted agent machine and then Microsoft hosted agent machine. And yeah, maybe when we are going with Microsoft hosted agent machine, so we don't have a full control on configuring the machine and all. Like if you want to install some kind of manual maybe any executable inside the agent machine, maybe somewhat it is restricted. So at the time you can go ahead and choose the maybe the self-hosted agent machine, but still it is possible, because right, the last time also in that agent machine we don't have a 2.2 ASP.NET Core runtime version. So because we have installed by using some built-in task. Okay, so similar, like, yeah, we can download that, but maybe for every time, right, if you are downloading some 200 MB, 300 MB of maybe the file, so that also not the good, because for every time if you're downloading means, so that itself it will take 30 seconds of our build time. So at the time, so mostly we can go with self-hosted agent machine, or otherwise I think nowadays, right, so agent machine also they are bringing into onto the Docker container. Okay, so inside the container, so all the maybe the executable and everything will be wrapped up, so that if you are spinning up the container, maybe the image means we will get the agent machine, it will be ready in 1 or 2 seconds, or else maybe 5 to 10 seconds, so it won't take that much time. So maybe the most of them, yeah, they are going with the Docker container also agent machine. Okay, so maybe Mabrod and Amos, so maybe if you have any queries in, if you have any thoughts or something, yeah, you can let me know.
Nothing, Salom. You can go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
So the next one, right? So the release, the maybe the maybe so now, right? So we are going to see the continuous deployment. Okay, so the Azure release pipeline. Okay, so earlier, right? So the build pipeline means what we will do is like we will do the source code checkout, we will do the compiling, and then we will do all the maybe the source code scanning, something like test, and then maybe running the unit test case, and then sonar scanning, and after that maybe we will be pushing the our binary to some staging directory or some kind of artifact repository, we will be pushing that. Okay, but when it comes to Azure release pipeline, right, what we will do is like we will take the binary from the Azure artifact, or maybe wherever the Azure artifact repos, maybe the repository, basically artifact repository, and then we will be pushing into the deployment platform. Okay, so the deployment platform can be anything, like it can be on premise, maybe the IaaS server, or it can be like maybe the cloud, any of the environment. So there are many services, right? Like maybe when it's when we are taking some example in Azure, so we can say like maybe Azure app service and functions and Azure Kubernetes service. So there are many deployment platform, the services available in Azure. So based on the need and based on our requirement, so we can go ahead and choose any one of the platform, and then we can deploy our application. Okay, so basically, so the release pipeline to take the binary from the Azure maybe artifact repository, and then it will be pushing into the, or it will be pushing or copying or deploying into the deployment platform. So once that is completed, maybe our application will be up and running. Okay, so mostly, right, so we will try to see an example of a API based application, because so when we are seeing like maybe any microservice or DevOps or most of the projects, right? So it will be API or web application projects. So that's why maybe we will try to look at in the API based project. So we will try to deploy one application actually. Okay. So for example, so before going further, maybe we need to know what are all the terminologies we are going to use. Okay, so for example, it's not maybe the difficult one, so you will be already understood. Like maybe when we are navigating to, when we are in the release pipeline page, right? So these are all the terms we will be seeing. Okay, for example, artifact source actually. Okay, so the artifact can be from any place, any repository. For example, when we are taking source control, right, Azure Repos only the source control option. Okay, because there are GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, there are many options, right? So similar, like from that artifact repository also there are many options, like maybe the Azure artifact, and then our the Docker hub, and then Azure container registry, and maybe in the Nexus, JFrog. So many of the options are there, so those and all, it will be coming from the artifact source. So basically from where we are going to retrieve the binary. Okay, so for example, when during our CI pipeline, okay, so we will be running the build pipeline, and then at the end of the CI or continuous integration pipeline, right, we will be getting the binary, and then we will be pushing into the artifact repository. Okay, and maybe so for example, for the CI pipeline, so so maybe the output would be the, maybe we are pushing that binary to artifact source. But for the release pipeline, right, so the input is like from where we are getting the application binary, so that is what the artifact source. Okay, and then the release trigger. Okay, maybe we can set up maybe similar kind of like a build trigger, right? So for example, here also we can set up some kind of release trigger. For example, whenever the new build is coming, or whenever we are creating maybe the maybe the when the developer is created the pull request, so some kind of trigger we can set it up. And also here one more thing is like so there are two terms actually, the continuous maybe the integration, right? So the continuous integration means whenever the developer is pushing the code, so automatically the workflow everything will be kicked off, and then the till the production environment also the application will be deployed. So that is what they will be calling it like continuous integration. So maybe when we are going to the that maybe fully automated process till the production, maybe we need to have some correct tools, right? Like future toggles. So there are many concepts we need to use. So we need to have the proper tooling to achieve the continuous integrate sorry continuous deployment process. So otherwise, right, so everything we have to do manually, so there are many chances for error and all. So at the time we cannot maintain. So if you are going with some proper tools, yeah, we can achieve till the production for all the steps, right? So everything is automated. Okay. And then so the basically the release trigger is so how we how our application to be deployed, maybe to maybe the two other environments, how we are going to deploy, maybe because, right, we know like maybe the build based on the build pushed to the artifact repository. So based on that event we can do the deployment. And also like maybe the schedule based deployment. So for example, the QA UAT and all, right, maybe for the dev that is fine, maybe automatically whenever the developer is pushing the code we can do the deployment maybe after the code has been updated. But the QA or UAT and all, right, maybe we can run the schedule time like maybe the everyday 12 o'clock or at the midnight, so we can run the deployment. So that if it is taking some time, maybe still that is fine, so it will be completed. So for example, when the maybe the QA team or the other team when they are coming first, so at the time they can think like, so we have the new build they have to test. So otherwise, right, maybe if you are deploying for every 5 minutes whenever the code is checked in, so for them also they don't have the clarity like which future they have tested or which build version they have tested. So they won't have any idea. Okay, for them it will be very cumbersome, right? So that maybe for the QA, UAT and so other environment and all, so we have to run maybe the schedule based trigger. Okay. And then the stages, so and then so the environment, right, so we know, so that is based on our maybe the organization, so how they are managing the environment and all. Okay, so some teams, right, some organization they will be having more than four environments, but mostly, right, so from my experience like the dev we have maybe for the development testing, and then the QA, and then UAT, and then the production. Okay, I think mostly the four environments only would be there. Okay, so we can classify into two like lower environment and then the higher environment, so that based on that we have to configure the branching strategy. And but sometimes, right, so some of the team, so based on our their application priority and all, say they would be having the many staging environments like UAT 1 2 3 or alpha beta gamma, so some kind of, so many the staging environment would be there. So mostly, right, so we need to reduce the number of environments as much as possible. So otherwise, right, so it will be taking some lot of time. For example, even the deployment testing and then the pull request everything, right, so it will take a lot of time. So that maybe we can discuss with the maybe the stakeholders, everyone. So if it is absolutely necessary, then we can have a number of environments. But if it is sometimes not necessary, right, so at the time we can go ahead with only the four or maybe the three also, so that may be fine. So that we have to check with the, so those and all everything, right, so that will be based on the organization policies. Okay. And then the stages, so similar like the CI, right, continuous integration. So here also we can classify like stages, and under the stages we will be having many jobs. and under the job maybe we can run some of the tasks. Okay, so the agent, job, and the stages, right? So those concepts, it is similar like the continuous integration only. Okay, so maybe when we are running the maybe the deployment, right? So what in the behind the scene, what it will do is like it will download the artifact, and then it will be pushed to the, maybe it will copy to the deployment platform. Okay, so to running those commands, right, we need to have some kind of environment, right? So that is what the agent mission. So here also similar like build pipeline, we need to have the agent machine with proper maybe the required capabilities. So with that, maybe we can run the maybe the commands, and then we can deploy it. But mostly, right, in the CI pipeline, we are doing the build and all. Okay, so during the build, right, we need to have the SDK, and then maybe the code quality scanning, right? So we need to have many capabilities. But in the release staging, right, mostly what we will do is like we will just do the downloading. Okay, and then we are copying. So I think here we don't, for the release agent, right? So we don't need anything like 2.2, or the maybe if it is like .NET application, maybe we don't need to like maybe the 2.2, the .NET Core, or maybe the Node version needs to be installed. If it is there, that is fine. But we don't have any specific requirement, because we are just going to run only the two commands. Like we are just going to download the maybe the artifact from that artifact repository, and then we are pushing it to the deployment platform. Okay, so this is what the stages. Maybe we can just recall like how we are assuming in the CI, maybe the build pipeline. So agents and stages, jobs, tasks, so everything will be the same in the continuous deployment or the release pipeline also. Okay, and then for example, deployment platform. Okay, the next one is deployment platform. So for example, in the release pipeline, right, so at the final stage would be like deployment platform. So as I said earlier, so it can be anything. For example, maybe the Mibrod scenario, right? Maybe they want to automate the SQL, maybe the schema changes to the some server, maybe the DB server. Okay, at the time the DB server would be the deployment platform. Okay, for example, if I am deploying the maybe the .NET API, so at the time I can choose VM, so where I need to install IAS server, so that that would be the deployment platform. But moreover, right, so for example, if you are going with the DevOps, Agile, and all, so mostly, right, they would be going with microservice architecture, and then the containerization based deployment. So when you are planning to go with any kind of maybe the DevOps related roles, so you maybe at least you need to know any kind of the containerization based tools like the dot, maybe the Docker, and maybe for the orchestration tool. So maybe we need to learn the Kubernetes, and maybe in that orchestration tool also there are many tools like Docker Swarm, Compose, and Fabric. So there are many things are there. So at least maybe we need to know one orchestration tool. So maybe for the deployment platform, so mostly, right, so more than 50 percentage, so the deployment platform would be any kind of the containerization platform. And even there, right, at least if you know Docker or Kubernetes, even if maybe the project, maybe when they are recruiting you, maybe they will maybe just they will interview for Kubernetes. But when you know the Kubernetes, right, you can easily understand other containerization tools like Pivotal Cloud Foundry and OpenShift. So there are many tools, right? So you can easily understand. So maybe we just need to know maybe how the containerization and deployment is working. And yeah, maybe in the upcoming sessions, right? So we have a one topic for maybe deploying application into Kubernetes cluster. So there we can see some overview, but the Kubernetes Docker itself, some big topic. Maybe you can also read some articles, or you can just learn that one. So that will be helpful in your DevOps career. Okay, and then the pre-gateway approval. So for example, whenever we are deploying in any kind of higher environment, right? So at the time, we should not be just like always rely on the event based on like whenever the build is maybe the latest build is came, or maybe the code is merged. So those kind of events should not take. For example, in the production and all, right? So that we need to have some manager in between, and then they need to get the maybe the approval link, and when they are approved, so then only maybe we can proceed the next deployment, maybe the next deployment. Okay, maybe here, right, from that Azure DevOps, so they don't have any service now integration and all. So they are for example, for the approval flow, right? So they are using the so they are actually using the native feature in the Azure DevOps itself. So that is the pre-gateway approval. But in the traditionally, right, maybe it's not like traditionally. For example, the service now is the tool is there, so that maybe there we will be using it for maybe the ticket management and also the change management. So mostly, right, so for the enterprise level, maybe the companies and all, so they will be managing all the production related changes over there. And then so there we have a workflow for maybe whenever raising the change ticket, to whom needs to assign for the approval. And if it is the high priority, maybe it will be going for managers and managers approval and all. So there are many workflows there, they can set it up. And also, right, maybe when we have the 100 teams and all, right, so that maybe they will be having the change management board also, so that they will be reviewing all the high priority releases for the next 2 weeks and all. And then when they are giving go ahead, and then only we can do the deployment. Okay, so mostly like maybe in the service now, right, the change management, so that integration also we need to have try with Azure DevOps if possible. Okay, but it is not provided as the native feature in the Azure DevOps like ticket management and all. So instead they have provided some pre-gateway approval so that we can use it. But maybe when the other teams, right, so they will be using many tools within their organizations. So if they are using the service now, so at the time we need to integrate within our pipeline, like whenever the particular job is executed, at the time it has to automatically create the change ticket. And maybe, yeah, we need to provide the parameters and all, so who will be the manager, everyone. So then automatically it will be assigned the task, everything to the managers. Okay, so the pre-gateway approval, so this is the maybe features provided within the Azure DevOps. But I think when it comes to maybe the broader level, right, maybe the enterprise level, so we need to understand how the change management and service now, and you have to see how we can integrate with Azure DevOps, so if there is any chance. And mostly, right, so whenever you are doing any such kind of integration, so the for the particular tool, right, you will be having the API documentation. Okay, so you just need to call the particular API to create the change ticket, to close the change ticket, to update the change ticket, right? For every operation you will be having the API endpoint. You just need to call that API with corresponding the token, the valid token. So that's it. So just we need to, yeah, maybe we need to know how to call the API. So mostly, right, so if you are in a Linux machine, you need to know how the curl module is working. And maybe in the PowerShell also the curl module is there. Maybe otherwise, if there is any other module like for the HTTP protocol interaction, so we can use that one. So if you have any doubts, yeah, you can ask Mebrod and Amos.
So in a high level, Salom, like what is the difference between the CA and the CD? CA we saw like creating the pipeline and then creating the artifacts, right?
Yeah.
And then CD is like taking the artifact and then deploying into the higher environment.
Yeah, higher environment, lower. It can be any deployment environment almost. Maybe we cannot say like, so it is just for the higher environment. So for example, right, from the CI, right, from the CI, it will take the source code and then it will compile. and then it will create the binary, and then it will be pushing it to the artifact repository. Okay, and from
Yeah.
that release pipeline, so we need to choose, right? So for example, whenever you are running the maybe the build pipeline, right, you will be having one binary. So we should not deploy, we don't want to deploy all the binary to the release pipeline, right? So that we have to choose, for example, which maybe the build version we need to pick for the particular deployment, and then we can run the deployment. So otherwise, right, if you are making continuous one, so for example, for every build we are taken, that we need to deploy to the release, maybe the deployment environment. Okay, so for example, we are just taking the maybe the artifact from the CI pipeline, and also, right, so mostly the CI pipeline, it is just for ensuring the code quality, and it should not affect any kind of existing functionalities. So those kind of qualities we are just ensuring in CI pipeline, and also we are at the end of the stage we are taken the artifact, the binary also. But from the continuous deployment or the release pipeline, we are just taken the binary, we have just pushed to the artifact repository, and then we are deploying in the environment. So mostly, yeah, the deployment maybe difference. Yeah, this is the two things, right? So it's a different thing only, almost. So this is just for
Mhm.
the build, and this is for the deployment. Maybe we can say like CI/CD and build and deployment. So something like that.
Okay. So you mentioned about the code quality check, right? Like, is it happening within the CA or on the CD side?
Yeah. Yeah. So for code scanning, right, the source code and all, it will be validated in the CI pipeline only. Okay. So
Not
for
the source code check, like for the existing functionalities, if it is any like a QA testing, right? So there
yeah,
will be some automated scripts. So that is all going to be within the CA.
yeah. So for example, right, for all the maybe for the existing test, right, maybe if they are writing some kind of the Selenium automation testing and all there, right? So for example, if your application is the UI application, okay, so at the time, right, it's not like the source code validation. It is like after the deployment is completed, so they need to test with the Chrome, maybe the web UI only, right? So at the time, so if they have any Selenium automation testing script, so our post deployment we can run some kind of maybe we can run that particular script like the post deployment validation. So it won't be comes like a code, maybe the quality check. Maybe after the deployment, yeah, we can run the pre-existing that steps and all. But maybe from that CI part of that one, right? So we can just run the unit test cases. The unit test cases also to ensure it's not affecting any existing functionality something. Maybe the UI, right? So it won't be like existing functionality. For example, the Selenium automation and all. So it's they are just checking the functionality. There we can run some kind of smoke testing, regression. So those kind of testing we can just ensure that. But even there also we can do the we can ensure like whether the existing functionalities are affected or not. But those things and all, right, we have to be find in the unit testing when running the unit test case itself. If there is, if it is affecting any kind of existing future means, when we are running the unit test case, so at the time itself we have to find that one.
So what kind of tools comes within the DevOps for the testing?
Okay, so for example, right, if you are using maybe if you are developing a .NET application, okay, so
Mhm.
there, for example, yours is API application, maybe API, or maybe we can say like combination of both, like API plus web app. The web app can be created in Angular or React. Okay, so for example, you have to maybe the you will be writing, maybe the developer will write the unit test cases. Maybe for that they will be using N unit or X unit based on that. Okay, and so similar like from that React also, right? So they will be writing some unit test cases. So before maybe taken the bill, we need to run the unit test cases, and if that is successful, then only we need to allow the next step, like maybe the taking the build and then packaging and pushing it to the artifact repository and all. Okay, so this is for the during the unit test case. Okay, and also during
Mhm.
the unit test case also, maybe when you are running that one, you will be generating the unit test case report. Okay, so that report you will be pushing, you will be providing to the sonars, the sonar cube. Okay, so there you can see like what is the code coverage, maybe whether we are writing the code, maybe the unit test case for all the scenario, or we are writing just for some of the scenarios. So everything we can just see that in the percentage manner, like I am covered the unit test case for the 70 percentage or 80 percentage. So some kind of the percentage it will be displayed in the sonar scan. So there we can set up some kind of quality gate also, like always the unit test case and code coverage should be like should be above 80 percentage something. Okay, so now you are clear, right? From the unit test case, we will be test running the unit test case, and then we will be down, we will be getting the code coverage report, and then we will be pushing it to the sonar code. So this is the one scenario. Okay, and apart from that, the security scanning point of view, we will be using another tools also, like checkmarks, black duck, and even there are many other tools also. Okay, so mostly like you can think like cast highlight, checkmarks, and black duck. So you can just know like these three tools. Okay, and so these all will comes under the source, maybe the from the source code level it will become. Okay, but once you deployed, right, once you deployed your application, so after that you need to verify, right, from the post validation you need to verify whether the application everything is properly up and running or not. So that post validation, right, so we can verify using the Selenium automation testing. Maybe if it is a web app, right, maybe a web application. So at the time if the QA team, right, so they will be creating the Selenium test cases and all, like so for example, if there is any portal, we are just entering with username and password, and we are login to that application, and after that we are creating the like new employee, and maybe the editing the employee. So all the UI interactions, right, so that will be scripted by the QA team, and when we are running that script, it will be automatically, it will be run on behalf of us. And even there are two methods also, maybe when we are running that one, right, even we can also see what it is doing. And otherwise, like maybe in that from the background also it will run. So from that background also, through that Chrome driver, it will connect to the maybe the Chrome or any browser, and then it will run all the test cases. And if there is any error it is coming, right, so that it will end the particular execution, and then it will report to the dev, maybe the developer or the pipeline itself, it will be failed. So now you understood, right, maybe what is the Selenium. So that is for the UI testing. Okay, if after the maybe the Angular or any kind of web application is deployed, so we can run the maybe the script, so that it will automatically log into the application, and then it will maybe run the test cases based on how maybe the QA team is they have scripted. So they will be having the sample data also, they will be having in Excel or CSV format, and we can just provide as the argument, and then it will be so it will be as like human. So it will be maybe like all the actions it will do. So now you understood, right,
Yeah.
almost. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then the next one is the API testing. Whatever I have said is like UI testing. So the next one is API testing. For the API testing also, there we have some tools like REST Assured. So with the tool, once that application is deployed, we can just call the particular API endpoint, and then we can so we will get the some response, right, and then we can just match with the database, and then our return output, and then we can say like yeah, that is working fine. But mostly I didn't maybe integrate with API testing. Yeah, so for that functionalities also, the API the rest assured one tool is there. And maybe even when we are searching, right, there are many tools will be there. And even the postman also, right, so that one also we can use it like automation. Even I didn't use that, but we can use it. Yeah, we can maybe they are so there are many queries, right? We can group it, we can group into one thing, and then we can run maybe in the sequence manner also we can run, I guess. And apart from that, for the performance testing also, the load runner or some kind of tool is there, so that from your machine, right, you can parallelly create multiple threads, and then you can test your application, so that we can check at the performance level also. For example, uh, from your application, right, so your requirement is always maybe the user will be like 100 to 1000, maybe the users. So that, so similar, like maybe from the load runner some kind of tool, right, it will create the maybe the 100 users, maybe it will create the 100 thread, and then it will so it will hit the application, and there we can see like whether we are all the 100 users, right, whether we can get the corresponding output or not. So based on that we can check the performance testing also. So that one also we can integrate with the CD pipeline, maybe the CI/CD pipeline, but those and all, right, so we can't integrate with the CI pipeline. So those everything has to be come in the CD pipeline only. So after the deployment, so we have to verify the UI testing, API testing, and then the security scanning, right? The security scanning means dynamic application security testing. So it will take the application endpoint as the input, and then it will crawl all the possible links within the application, and then it will try to exploit all the attacks in that application. So now yeah, now you are good, Amos, or
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, team. So the next one, right? So for example, yeah. So this is the maybe when we are creating the web-based pipeline, right? So this is how it will be there in the Azure DevOps. So for example, we need to choose the artifact. So currently they are taking the artifact from that Azure pipeline itself. Okay. So when we are creating the Azure pipe, the build pipeline, right? So there itself we can store our artifact also, but there we will be there, we need to set some kind of the retention period and all. Maybe there will be some kind of restrictions. Maybe if you are going with some kind of maybe the licensed model, they will be providing, maybe we can keep the same bill for number of days. But if you're going with the free tier and all, right, maybe we can have the only the last five build, or maybe for the all for the next for the next 30 days, it would be automatically purged something. So something it will be happen. But when you are going with some kind of the Docker Hub, the Nexus repository, so if you are having in your own data center, so that one also you can use it as the artifact repository. But mostly, right, even when you are having the Nexus artifact repository or something, right, so they will be having the purging mechanism. Okay. So otherwise, right, so if you are keeping all the build everything in our local machine or in our disk, so I think it will be easily it will be filled, right, within a 1 month. So for all the 100 teams, right, if they are building for the dev, QA, UAT everywhere, right, so if you are for every build, right, it will be coming like 100 to maybe the 150 MBs and all. So that will be based on the application size, the build size and all, it will be based on the application size. So if you are keeping all the not maybe the unwanted builds and all, right, so it will be so we can't manage the disk space effectively. Okay. So in those scenarios, maybe even the on-premise data center also, on-premise the Nexus repository or the artifact repository implementation, so there also they will be having the purging mechanism. So that is why, so even the release in the previous session, right, so we have seen the snapshot and the release build. Okay. So they will be deleting the snapshot build periodically, but the release build they will be having keeping in the maybe the higher retention period. So mostly they won't delete the release build, but for the snapshot build and all, right, they will be deleting maybe for 1 week or after 10 days they will be deleting automatically, so that maybe our disk space it won't be full. So maybe because otherwise, right, once it is filled then they need to attach new hard disk and all. So maybe if it is record then we can do that, but the snapshot and all, we are not going to deploy those things and all to the production one, so that those are the things it is not recovered. So yeah, maybe we need to know like maybe what is the retention period and like those kind of the snapshot build, release build, so those things also we need to understand. So when we are working with the artifact repository, okay. And then here the stages, right, for example we will be having the many stages, right. So for example, so under that one, so we will be having the many the the environment. So here we are naming it like dev, qa and production. And here also we can sequentially we can do like dev, qa, and after that uat and production. Or we can say like maybe to run the production at least we need to run the dev environment if that is our requirement. So we can say like from the dev we can parallelly run qa and production also. And here, right, so for example this icon is for the trigger, like how our applications to be triggered. For example, whenever the latest build is coming, yeah, so whenever the latest build is reached to our repository, so at the time we can run the dev pipeline something. Or otherwise when we are running the pull request, when we have created the pull request, so at the time we can start the dev environment. And also here the user icon, right. So for example, if you want to deploy some maybe before doing the deployment, so if you want to get some approval from any managers or the qa team or the dev team, dev lead something, so at the time we can set it up some kind of the gateway approval also, so that it will be whenever we are doing the deployment, so it will be automatically the approval link will be sent in the mail. And when they have approved, then after that only we will be having the deploy option will be enabled here actually, okay. And here, right, so we can set it up some kind of the scheduling also. So apart from that of the trigger, we can set it up some kind of scheduling also, maybe based on our cron expressions. We can start it like for every day, maybe we have to at the midnight we have to run the deployment. So those kind of things we can configure. And here one more thing also, like uh, for maybe the for the particular build, for the particular deployment, right, the source can be from number of pipeline also. So for example, right, here you have the artifact. The artifact type also can be like docker hub, azure container registry, and nexus, right. So for the same pipeline we can configure n number of the artifact repository also. So for example, right, mostly how they will do is like for example you are deploying a .NET API application. So what is the requirement is like you need to have the application, the build, and apart from that the next one is you need to have the infra creation script, the azure infrastructure, right. Maybe we will be having the terraform script, and that one also maybe it will be coming from the another pipeline, okay. So that time we will be having the two repository, and we have to download the the artifact. And then here we have to run some kind of maybe the script and all. So for example, right, maybe if you have the infrastructure creation script in azure cli, so that we need to have the azure cli in our agent machine, and then we just need to run. So for example, in that particular folder or the working directory, we need to have the azure cli script. And after that it will be automatically yeah, maybe it will be automatically, it will connect with azure, and then it will create the azure app service and maybe the kubernetes service. So based on the script we have in the maybe the binary, okay. So first we will be deploying our infrastructure, and after that we will be copying our artifact binary. Okay, and here also something sometimes, right? Maybe if you have a maybe the slot, maybe the for the blue green or canary deployment, so at the time, right, maybe the number of stages also it can be increased. For example, uh, so the dev and qa, that is fine, but for the production, right, we will be having the two tasks, like so because, right, we are having the two slot, right, the we will be deploying the two slot, and once that is verified, and then we will just swap the slot, so that the newer version will be available to the end user. Okay, and also like the launch darkly, and then the service now integration I have said, right, for the creating the change ticket, and those things and all, maybe we can configure as the one of the job. Okay, so and one more thing, like for all the job, right, so it will be running in any one of the agent machine only. So for example, if I am running any terraform script or azure cli, so in that agent machine I need to have the azure cli and terraform needs to be installed. But if I am just doing the copy and download and copy means, then I don't need any kind of the capabilities and all. Okay, so team, maybe if you have a query, you can just let me know. Then we can discuss this one. So, so Amos, you are good with that one, right? Here, just yeah, maybe the this is the classical editor, but when we are going the pipeline also, right? The YAML code, maybe the tomorrow we will see that one. So that also the same concepts only, like from where we are going to get the artifact binary, and then from which the deployment platform we are going to deploy it. The same thing only, but the concept wise the both of them same. But here we are just saying in the classical the GUI manner, there we will be writing in the code manner, like there we are using the YAML code, and yeah, so there we are yeah, configuring that one.
So this is the part two of the initial pipeline what we saw last week, right?
But the
Kind
last,
of.
yeah, yeah, correct. Yeah. So the last time, right, we have just seen the CI pipeline, and that will be pushed to the Azure artifact. Okay.
Mhm.
But this is the release pipeline. So from that artifact, we are just getting that one. And from here, we are deploying to the all the other environments. But the last
Okay.
time, right, we are just try to deploy in Azure, right? Uh,
Hmm.
I think we
We
try to
did both,
deploy Azure.
and
Okay.
also some Git also you did, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. From that GitHub, we have tried. Okay. Yeah, that is something different, Amos. Okay. So from that GitHub, how we are achieving the CI/CD. So that one we have tried. But from that Azure DevOps, right, we have created the pipeline, and then one more thing also, Amos. So from that build pipeline itself, you can try to uh, configure the deployment, maybe the task also. But that's not the best way. Okay, I think the last time, I guess, maybe we try to deploy the application from the same build pipeline, we have configured the deployment task also. Okay, so that is
Mhm.
still possible, but from the build pipeline, right, you won't be having the option for referring the other artifacts, and then the release trigger, and then the gateway approval. Okay, those kind of features you won't be get from that build pipeline. Okay, but if you're just doing the deployment, right, you can still we can complete with the build pipeline itself. We can add another one more task at the end of the artifact publish, but that is not the good way. But if you're trying to accomplish the deployment also with the build pipeline, right, we won't be having the extra features that is offered by the Azure DevOps, like the artifact, and then the environment and all, right. You can just clone the environment, and even you will be having some control, like after the dev is deployed, then only we can deploy the QA. So those kind of features we will be having here. But if you are just trying to accomplish deployment using the build pipeline, then we can just deploy it, but we won't be having the extra features and all, like the trigger and then the gateway approval and the parallel deployment and all, right? Maybe those kind of condition check, so we won't be getting in the build pipeline. So you got it right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Amos. So, okay, Amos. So the next one, right? We will be seeing the Azure, the release pipeline demo, like from deploying the .NET application to Azure App Services. Yeah. Okay, team. So now, right? So we are going to see the Azure release pipeline demo. So in this one, what we are going to do is like we are going to take .NET Core API application, and then we are going to deploy in a Azure environment. So there we are going to use Azure App Services. So that is the one of the deployment platform in Azure. Okay. So maybe the Azure App Service, right? So we know like that is the one of the PaaS service. So what we have to provide is like we need to provide what is the runtime version, and apart from that our application binary. So we don't need to maybe provide any kind of any other details. We don't need to maybe manage the infrastructure or any update. Okay, so we there is no any other manual intervention. So just we have to we are going to create the resource. There we need to provide the runtime version, and after that the maybe our application binary. So that is enough. And apart from that they are following the following technology stack, like the .NET, Java, Python, Node, and then Ruby. I think currently they are supporting so the 5 languages, and I think they are not giving any support for the Go language. So I think for the most popular languages, so they are supporting in it. Maybe in the future releases and all, right, they may be supporting maybe the new, maybe the other languages also. Okay, so first we will see how to create the resource, like Azure App Service, that resource in Azure. uh, Okay, so here this one I have already created. Maybe for the demo I will create maybe another one. Okay, I'm clicking on App Service, clicking on Create. Yeah, so here, right, automatically the subscription is populated, and we can provide maybe the new resource group, and if the resource group is already there we can use the existing resource group also. Okay, so there are already the two resource group is there, so maybe I can create a new one. Okay, maybe otherwise it will confuse. Maybe I will say like November 15. Okay, so this is our resource group. Okay, and then I am just providing the web app name like uh, .NET. Okay, so this is our web application name, and maybe so here, right, when we are providing the web app name, so based on that it will generate the application URL. Okay, so it has to be unique, right? So otherwise we can't access the URL. Okay, and so this is the application URL, so I'm just provided the name. Okay, and one more thing also, maybe we want to know, like currently, right, the domain is like azure websites .net. Okay, maybe in the basic version, right, maybe in the basic tier or basic tier, we can just use the their hostname only, their DNS only. If you want to use our DNS, right, so for example if you have some DNS like maybe the facebook.com, whatsapp.com, also some kind of domain if you have our application also. So at the time maybe we have to use the standard tier. Maybe there are many tiers, right? The basic, standard, and the premium tier, some kind of tiers are there. I think with the basic we cannot configure the custom DNS. Maybe the custom DNS we cannot map it. So if you want the particular feature, we just want to upgrade to the maybe the premium or standard tier. Okay, and then publish. So this is the code, so that's why I'm choosing this one. And then if our maybe if it is the image or repository something, we have to choose this one, like the Docker container in this case. Okay, so in our case, our we are going to deploy as the application code only. So after that we are going to take the binary, and then the binary only we are going to publish it. So that's why I'm choosing the code. Okay, and then here we have to provide the runtime stack. Okay, so for example there are many things, right? So for example the Ruby, Python, PHP, Node, Java, .NET is there, right? So for example, here I can choose the application stack. So for example, if I am developing application using Java 11 means, so I have to choose the Java 11, so that within that Azure App Service, right? All the underlying the utilities and libraries that needed to run Java application, so it will be there. So otherwise, right? So for example, I am choosing the runtime stack as .NET 5, but I'm deploying the PHP or Node application, so our application won't work. Okay, so for example, so here the important thing is we need to choose the corresponding runtime stack. Okay, so even we need to for example sometimes, right? Like here they are saying like 4.8, 3.5. So we need to choose the correct target environment also. But sometimes, right? So for example, if you are developing the application whose the target environment is .NET 4.6. Okay, so at the time if you are choosing the 4.8, so this version it will have the previous version compatibility also. So mostly it won't be having the breaking changes. But I think mostly, right, if you are choosing if it is matches to the exact target version, that is fine. But otherwise, right, we need to choose the higher version, so that it will be having uh, the the previous version compatibility also. Okay, so for example in my case, right, so my application is .NET Core 2.2. So here I am not seeing any 2.2 version, so that's why I'm choosing the 3.1, so that it will be having the downward the version compatibility also. So that I am choosing the .NET Core 3.1. Okay, but here we will be having the two option because the .NET Core is, right, that is the cross platform. So we can run our application in both Linux and Windows. Okay, maybe that is up to your choice only. You can run in a Windows host or in the Linux host also. Maybe I'm choosing the Linux one. Okay, and then here where we are maybe from which region we are creating the maybe apps service actually. Okay, so for example maybe you can choose the region that is very nearer to your uh, region actually. So for example I am in India, right? So I can use any central India, South India, or any one of the region I can choose it. But since you are in US region, right, so you have to choose whichever the region is very closer to you, so that maybe the number of the latency and bandwidth, so everything will be reduced, so that you can get the application also at the, it will be somewhat faster. Maybe we can't see that in the maybe in the very millisecond level, but yeah, maybe you have to choose whatever the region is very very closer to you. Okay, maybe I am for an just for an example, I am choosing maybe the uh, maybe yeah, central US, I'm just choosing that one. Okay, and then the Linux plan, right? So I'm already created one app service plan, but if you want to use the same, you can choose that one. Otherwise, yeah, we can create a new Linux plan. Okay, maybe I'm saying like new plan. Okay, so and then here you have to choose the size actually. So this is the premium one. Okay, the 210 total ACU and then 3.5 GB memory is there. Okay, so this is the premium tier. Okay, and yeah, I think here it is
So
not.
is SEU like CPU or what
Yeah,
is
I
it?
think here, right, the 210 ACU means so I think in ACU they are calculating the computing resource, I guess. I think mostly the CPU, right? The CPU they will be measuring in the clock speed and then the number of core. Okay. I think the
Mhm.
ACU means relative compute performance between different Azure series and size VMs. Okay, calculate ACU. Yeah, Azure compute in it. So I think they will be having some computation logic, right? So how you are utilizing the resource, okay? Because based on that only they will be charging, right? So the 210 means yeah, I think indirectly yeah, I think here, right? Yeah, VM with ACU of 100 has twice the compute of a VM with ACU of 50. Yeah, maybe yeah, this is some computation logic they are doing that one. Maybe yeah, I will research and then I will tell you in tomorrow session. Okay, so maybe the based on that ACU only they will be charging the amount, I guess. Okay,
Okay, Nish.
yeah.
Yeah.
So here, right? So we have created the maybe we have filled the form. So do you have any queries here? So for example, here we have chosen the subscription resource group and then the instant details. So based on that, here the URL will be generated and then here we are choosing what kind of publish method like code or Docker container, and here we are choosing the runtime stack like 3.1 because we are going to deploy .NET application that version is 2.2, so that is why I'm choosing the 3.1, and we can choose in Linux or Windows as well, but I'm choosing Linux one, and then where the app service needs to be created, so that one we are choosing central US, and then here the app service plan, so that one also important one because the app service plan, right? So for example, you can create a one app service plan like a 3.5 GB memory and 210 ACU size. Okay, so for example, within the same app service plan you can deploy multiple application also. Okay, so we will be having the app service plan, so we will be creating this app service plan, and under that we can deploy many maybe the web application, so based on the maybe the our application usage and all. Okay, so for example this one, right, maybe I'm creating a new plan. So for example this one has the 210 total ACU and 3.5 GB memory. So for example, currently I'm going to deploy one application, but you can deploy one or more application also with the same app service. Okay. So so Amos and Mebrod, you are good with that one, right? Maybe apart from that of ACU, like how they are calculating the computing logic, but apart from that, you are understood, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I am just clicking on review and create, but in between, right, the monitoring and all maybe so that is somewhat maybe how we can monitor our application, and there are some other services also like application insight. So for example, each and every request, right, so it will be monitored by the monitoring tool, and there we can see some kind of insights, and from there we can create some kind of alert notification system. So that is what the monitoring tools. So I think for this one, right, we are just doing the deployment, right? So for that one we don't need, but when we are seeing some kind of monitoring related session, right, so at the time we can see that one. Okay, so currently this one is validated. I'm just click on create now. So it will take, yeah, some time, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Yeah, I think the similar process only for maybe other deployment platform also, team, like so maybe other popular one, right? Azure Kubernetes service. Okay, so I think yeah, the Kubernetes service, right? I think similar way, but here this one is the containerization platform, right? So it will actually ask some other details like the maybe master node, child node. So some other parameters it will ask, and maybe the popular PaaS platform in Azure is like Azure App Service, and then Kubernetes Service, and Azure Container Instances, and then Azure Function also. So if you have the function, some kind of things, so we can deploy our application in Azure Function also. But we cannot deploy the API in Function app, but maybe for any kind of the logic and all we need to run, right? So those things, yeah, we can configure it in the Function app. Okay, so currently, right, uh, uh, the web app is created, so I'm just clicking on that one. Okay, so under the November 15 resource group, so you can see the yeah, the two things. So the first one is app service plan, and under that one web application is created. Okay, so you can create a one more web application also with the same, by using the same app service plan. So for example, if you think like the 3.0 GB of memory is sufficient for both the web application, yeah, you can create one more one also. So that is based on our application load and performance only, right? So just you want to know, like, so we are just creating app service plan. Under that you can create one or more web application also. So that is why here they are mentioning like app service. Okay, so the next one, right, we can see our source code. Okay, uh, yeah, so here you can see, right, so under the resource tracker, the project, we are having many repositories, like you can think like these are all different microservices. Okay, so the yesterday, right, so we have just built the shared library. So this is class library. Maybe this library, right, so it will be consumed in another other microservices. Okay, so we can't deploy the class library in any one of the platform, right? Because this in this library we will be just having the reusable component, so that we will be using in any one of the other services, the API project. Okay, so and this one is the Terraform script. Okay, and the assignment, discussion, resource requirement, so these are all just API project. Okay, so the framework we are using here is like ASP.NET Core 2.2, that MVC1. So I'm just clicking on that repository, and these are all the repository the repository structure. Okay, so we have the git ignore file, like what are all the files we need to be ignored, like the when we are doing the build and all, right, like the debug, release, and if there is any folder called x86, x64, the bin folder, object folder, so all the temporary folder, right, so everything we have to be excluded, because we should not checked in with the source code repository. So if you are merging those one also, right, so our repository won't be clean, so it will be a clumsy, so we cannot it won't be good practice. Okay, so and then I think the last time I have created some build pipeline with YAML thing, but for now, right, we are not going to use the YAML file. For now, you can just ignore that one. And under that one, right, we will be having the many file, the solution file, and there are many layers like repository, infra, domain, dependency injection, API, and then the charts. And this chart is for the Kubernetes one, maybe that we can see later. Okay, but for now you can just try to understand like this is the .NET Core project. So for example here you can see, I guess, I think under the API project in the CS project you can see like .NET Core 2.2. Okay, so this is our the runtime, the target framework. Okay, so this is the target framework. So in our target platform we need to have the 2.2 runtime environment. So currently in Azure app service we don't have the 2.2. So that is why we have chosen the higher version, like next to 2.2 we have the 3.6 there. 3.0 is there, so that's why we have chosen the 3.0, so that it will have the downtime compatibility, so it will support for the .NET Core 2.2 also. Okay, so in this API project, right, we are referring the other project also, the dependency injection, and then the domain project also, but currently there is no logic in it. So just for an example I am saying. Okay, so within the maybe the API project, right, so we are having another project also, so it will be referred in the API project. Okay, so now you understood the source code structure, right? Like we have the .NET Core 2.2, the API project, and parallel to that we have some class library also, so that will be used in the API project. Okay, so Amos and Mebrod, so you are good with the source code structure, right?
Yeah, I am fine.
Okay. So the next one, right, we are going to create the build pipeline for this one, because I have already created one. Maybe I will create a new one for you. Uh, so we will create a new build pipeline, and after that we will create the release pipeline also. Okay, so this is one already we have created. So the new, I'm clicking on new pipeline, and here I'm choosing classical editor, and then we have the code in Azure Repos. So here there are many repositories, right? So I am choosing the assignment services. Okay, and then click on continue, and here I am choosing the empty job. Okay, so I am saying like this is assignment service build. Okay, and then maybe for so maybe currently, right, we are doing the build for the ASP.NET Core project, so that we can choose the Windows 2019 the agent machine. Okay, so here we are using the Microsoft hosted agent machine only. So here there are many options, right? So we don't need to choose Mac or Ubuntu and all. So we can choose the Windows one, because in the Windows it will be already installed the 2.2 SDK also. So that will be the requirement. No, I think it's not deployed, so we have to deploy it manually, install it manually. Okay, so here I am choosing the Windows 2019, and here the agent job. So first we can say like uh, maybe build. So current, the as we see last time also, right, the 2.2 version is deprecated. So due to that one, so we have to install it manually. So here I'm choosing use .NET Core. So we have to provide which SDK we need to install it. Okay, so we need to install 2.2.x, maybe 2.2, and maybe the patches can be anything. Maybe if you are specifying X means like it will take the latest one. Okay, so and then the next one is we need to do the restore and build and all we need to run, right? So for example, I'm adding couple of tasks from the .NET Core. Okay. So the first task is we are going to run the restore. So here I'm choosing the restore, and then the next one Yeah, so the next one is .NET build. So we are already here already by default, right? It is chosen as build so that we don't need to do anything. So the next one, right? So we have to select the projects. So what are all the project it has to build? So that I'm just giving like all the projects, maybe files that is ending with the .cs project. So that is the extension for the .NET core project. Okay, and then the next one is we need to pack uh, the artifact. Okay, so once we have built, right, so we will be having many folders like bin object, so we don't need all the things, right? So that we have to pack the only the artifact alone. So that is why here we are choosing the pack command, and then here it will be pushed to the, yeah, the configuration to pro, no, I think in the build, right? Okay, so this is build. The next one is, I think we have to choose the publish one. So here we have to provide the argument comments like our runtime environment, right? So the Linux 64-bit, and then configuration, I think by default, right? So this will be the variable. So there we can provide like release or debug, those kind of configuration we can provide. And then the output where we have to so in which folder we need to copy the output folder. So here we are saying like the build dot artifact staging directory. So there we have to copy the our artifact. Okay, so from the next command, right, from that artifact staging directory we can push it to the azure pipelines. Okay, so team, you are okay, right? Or maybe if you have, maybe here, right, we are just restoring the dependencies and we are running the build, and after that we are publishing the maybe the artifact to the maybe the artifact staging directory, and after that we are just going to maybe stage our maybe the application binary to the from this location to our azure pipelines artifacts. Okay,
Can you show me one more time that restore the steps?
okay. The restore, right? So just like maybe here we can provide the, yeah. So just write the .NET Core built-in task, and I'm choosing the restore command, and then the path to projects, right? So here I'm always choosing like .cs project. Okay,
Okay.
and then here the .NET build, so that also the same thing. So the display name is just for our understanding, but here just we are going to choose the build command. Maybe here these are all the custom, the task they are provide built-in support, right? So that we have to, we are choosing that one. So if you are using any other command line, any other command, right, so at the time you have to choose the custom one. Okay, so you have to use the custom, and then you need to run the command manually. Okay, but if you're choosing the build command, so it will run the .NET build command by default. So if you have any requirement that you need to run some other command like build, restore, so there are any other command also will be there, right? Like .NET the install package, maybe any other command means, if it is not listed here, then you need to use the custom command. Okay,
Okay.
and then we are
Yep.
packing, yeah, and then we are packing the artifact, and then the next one is like we need to push it to the azure pipelines. Okay, so here the publish pipeline artifact. maybe here we can provide any name. Okay, so in this step what we are doing is like, for example, right, we have packed the artifact in this location. Our output is pushed to artifact staging directory. So the next one what we are going to say, like, we are getting the library from this location, and then we are pushing it to the Azure pipeline artifact. Okay, so that it will be available to the release pipeline. So if you are pushing it to Azure pipeline, right, and the library will be available there. So from there we can refer from the uh, maybe the release pipeline. So you got it, right? So we are just packing it in the staging directory. And so still here, right, so still this step it will be in the agent machine only. So when we are running the build, right, sorry, when we are running the deployment, it can't go to the agent machine, and from there it can't copy the maybe the library or the artifact and all. So for this reason what we are doing is like, we are copying the particular library from artifact staging directory to and Azure pipeline. So now, right, so it will be come here. So it will be comes into the DevOps server, so that maybe whenever you are running the release pipeline, it will be taken from the Azure pipeline itself, maybe from the Azure DevOps server itself. Okay. So maybe I'm just clicking on save and queue. Yeah, I think it will take some time. So I think still it is running. Maybe if you have any doubt in this pipeline, you can uh, ask me, Amos and my bro. I think it will take maybe the 2 minutes something. So here you can understood, right? Yeah, I think here it is installed 2.2 in agent machine, and currently it is running the restore command. So Amos, you are working on the API related projects also, right?
Some of the web services we have, but not like the actual APIs
Okay,
itself.
okay. Maybe the
Yeah.
WPF, WGCF something, or maybe that one.
So like WCF,
Okay.
like the .svc file.
Okay. So that also maybe the we are testing through HTTP only, right? Or any other protocol?
For the testing, I used that the other day I showed you the test connection, right? Like one solution. So
Hmm.
that is the one which I will be using for my unit testing.
Okay.
And then when the application runs, then internally it calls the web service and it gets the data.
Okay.
So that's how I do the unit testing, and then it will go on the regular
Okay.
QA testing.
Okay, Amos.
But there is one more project which I will be more now has to get used to with app services.
Oh, okay. Azure App Service. Or
Right,
okay,
Azure App Services.
okay.
So
So
already we have like two other app services which was developed by a third party company, and for those testing, yes, I will be using the REST client.
hmm.
So using the REST client, I test those applications.
Oh, okay. So you want to migrate your WCF to Azure App Service, or maybe you are going to create a new
Now, it will
application.
be all like new projects for the upcoming projects.
Okay. Okay, Amos. Yeah. So I think currently, right? So the task has been completed. So the next thing, right? Uh, yeah, maybe here, right? The artifact also produced. So there we have provided, right? So from that artifact staging directory, we need to publish. We need to maybe copy the artifact to Azure pipelines. Okay. So because of that, so currently we can see the artifact actually. So this is created in the name of rt.as.api.zip. So this is the name of the API project name. Okay, maybe when we can download it, maybe you can manually also you can deploy to Azure App Service, but we are going to deploy from the release pipeline. Maybe this is the release, the output. Maybe you can download it and then you can manually also you can deploy it by using the any FTP or SFTP. But the more preferred way is, yeah, we can run from the pipeline itself. Okay, so what I'm going
So
to, yeah.
where is this physically available? So if you go to the artifacts, then is it going to be under the artifacts?
Yeah. So here, right? So for example, I think from this log, I'm going here.
But
Yeah,
there
I
should
think
be
we have.
some other different way, right?
No, I think for this artifact, right? So this is the build number. Okay,
Okay.
and then so for if you want to go to the particular artifact, then you need to go to the particular build, and from there only you can go to the artifact. Maybe sometimes, right, this is the build number 26 20. If you want to take the artifact of 25, then you need to go to the particular build, and from there you have to get that one. Okay,
What do you have on the library on the left side under the pipelines?
I think here we won't have that one. Yeah, I think just like maybe the reusable, the variable group, we can mention it, but this is not for the artifact storing.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like maybe it will be on the artifact library or somewhere.
No, I think this artifact, right? This is for the class library. So, like maybe the reusable functions, right? Maybe the node or
Mhm.
all the libraries we can push it here. But for the pipelines, right? For the build pipelines, so we can just stage it here. But maybe when we are creating the release pipeline, right? You can easily understand. So, for example, when we are
Okay.
creating the release pipeline, so when you're running the deployment, right, you will be just choosing the build number like 26 something. So automatically whatever the build is staged here, it will be automatically downloaded there. So you got
But
it
every
right.
time the number, yeah, but every time when we trigger this one, right, like it will be creating like a new
Yeah.
the build number, and then on the release you go and change the build number. Then
Yeah, correct. Yeah, for example, right? So now you have built, so there is some problem with this one. So that you are going to update the code change and then you are going to trigger the new build so that you will get the latest build with the name like 27. So you have to choose the 27 only, right? You have to run the deployment for 27. So there you will be having the option like you have, whether you want to select 26 or 27. So at the time based on maybe it's your wish only, you can run the deployment for 26 or 27 also. So for example, I'm running the one more time, right? So that it
so
will
this will be like a manual process every time, right? Like whenever
no,
you build.
No, this is something manual, but you can set it up the configuration, right? Automated configuration, you can set it up. Like for example, in the trigger, right? You can set it up like whenever the whenever the code is changed, at the time we can configure the automation. But currently we are just created, right? So that I'm not created any trigger. So for example, here we can set it up some source code trigger also. Like in here maybe you can set it up some kind of enable continuous integration, so that here whenever the code has been updated in the master branch, it will be automatically start the build, so that we don't
Yeah,
need to
so
run
it's going to,
manually.
yeah, this will create like a new build number,
Yeah, so that we
and then
don't need to
after that,
create run pipeline, right? We don't need to run we don't need to click run pipeline in this method, but
correct.
currently.
So, mhm.
Yeah, but sometimes,
But
right? So sometimes the bill will be failed, so you have to rerun it to maybe because of some other network glitches or any infra issues. Also, it can be failed. So at the time we need to rerun it, so that we need to come to this page only.
now when you are talking about the continuous integration CI/CD, right? So you change the code on the master branch, and then once the master branch is updated, then this, like before this, the pipeline. So this is the only one pipeline, right?
Yeah, this is only
Before
one.
going to,
Yeah, this is the one.
okay.
Yeah, this is only one. So for example, here you can choose the branching filter also. So for example, you are saying it like maybe whenever, for example, right? So in a real time scenario, we won't be having the only one branch also. We will be having the develop and then maybe the deploy master, or maybe even
Mhm,
the future branches also we will be having, right? Future bug fix or hard fix
mhm.
branches also. Based on that, based on the branch filters, we can configure the triggering and all. So for example, the master branch and all, we don't want to configure the direct trigger. For the develop, we can trigger the build and then we can deploy into the dev environment. But master and all, right? Maybe if you are configuring it for the production environment, so at the time we can just manually run it. So that is based on our the requirement only. But here they are giving the trigger options, so based on our requirement or need, we can configure the dev. So when we need to run the dev deployment and qa deployment and all. Okay, but anyway, right, the build is common. So for example, maybe I am not sure whether you have confused with the environment. So for example, right, if I am maybe running the build for the master branch, the same thing I can deploy for the dev qa and production also. Okay, even if I'm running the build for the develop branch or future branch, but maybe based on your trigger or the automation, you can change that one. But otherwise, right, maybe anyway, for in that the build log, right, you will be having the artifact. So that is enough for running any kind of deployment in any the azure app service environment like dev qa or prod.
So as like they on the industry standards, like in day to day in the industry life, how do they have these branches? So they have like multiple branches. So as as a developer, right? Like once they push everything into master, then it is going to start the trigger, and then it's going to deploy in say like UAT,
Okay,
right? So
yeah.
that is like one part, and then like it goes through the approval, and then once somebody triggers, or like if they move the code from master to say like QA, so then the QA will be like triggered, and then all the code changes will be updated in QA.
Okay, yeah,
Is it right?
maybe, yeah. So, yeah, as you said, yeah, that is correct only. But for example, right, the developer is working on it, some future branch. Okay, so whenever they are pushing the code in the future branch, so at the time the trigger will be happen and dev branch build will be automatically triggered, and after that it will be immediately it will be deployed into the dev environment also. But the develop branch trigger, right, it won't be deployed into the any other maybe the environment and all like qa and uat and all. We won't be deploy from the develop branch, sorry, future branch. So you got it right. So for example, the developer is working on future branch and then he pushing the code. Automatically, the particular future branch build is triggered and then deployed into the dev environment. So that is the one flow.
Okay.
Okay, and the dev is tested in the dev environment, so that is working fine. Okay, and after that he is created the pull request to develop branch and then he completed that one, so that now the deployment is happened to the QA environment. Maybe the QA environment, it won't be happen immediately when we are raising the pull request or upon completion. It will be based on the scheduled also. It can be like every day, right? So every day midnight 12 o'clock or something, or the morning sometime. So at the time the trigger, it will check for the particular branch, and if there is any updated code, then only it will run the deployment, it will run the build, and after that it will run the deployment. So you got it right.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that is for the QA. Okay, now the QA also completed that one, and after that maybe the QA also.
So
Yeah.
let me break here. So when it is on the QA, the code changes is still on the feature branch, not moved to the master branch. Is it right?
No, I think now I have said right. So from the they have raised the pull request from the future branch to they have moved to develop branch.
Okay.
Okay, so if they want to work on any new feature, they have to create a new separate future branch. So currently you are working on some future branch, so that you have
Mm-hmm.
completed, so that you have merged with develop branch, so that that has been pushed to QA as well. Okay, so
Okay.
there
So
is.
develop.
Yeah, so there is nothing to work with the particular feature, but they will be working on maybe some other features. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
with some other feature branch.
Okay.
Okay, so currently, right, the develop branch having the latest code, and then it is deployed to QA environment. So there the QA team, they will be testing it. So even they have maybe okay with all the changes, everything. Then we will be raising the one more pull request from develop to master. So there maybe we will be running the deployment to the UAT environment, and after that maybe the from the same master branch only whatever the build we have verified, right? So for example, you are raised the pull request from develop to master branch. Okay, so at the time the build number is maybe the 27. Okay, so the 27 the build is deployed in the UAT environment. Okay, so the next time, so because the business also okay with the build the 26, so that the next time, right, so when we are going to the production one, so we will be deploying the same 26 version only. So because whatever the build we have verified in the UAT, the same thing only we will be deploying in the production also.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you got it right. So from future,
Yeah.
the dev environment, and then they will be merging in develop branch, and from the develop branch, the QA it is going, and then we are raising the pull request from develop to master, and then we are running the new build, and then it is deployed into the UAT environment, and the same build number, right? So whatever the business team is verified, the same thing we are pushing it to production as well. That's it.
If there are like 10 different developers are working on one project, then will it
Yeah.
not be like so confusing that they'll be getting like their new source code?
No, it won't be it won't be confused, right? So, for example, the 10 different developers, they will be working in the different branches only. Okay, future branches, and then when they have completed, they will be merging with develop branch, and when it is merging means it will be available for the QA team for the testing. But anyway, right? So maybe we won't, for every future we won't be deploying to the production one. So for example, right, so the dev will be uh, working on today, and then he will be pushed to QA tomorrow. Okay, so similar way maybe the process it will be happen for the 2 weeks. Okay, so after that time we will be having some releasable future to production environment. So we won't be doing for every 10 future, we won't be doing for the UAT and production deployment. But for the all the 10 futures, right, we will be doing one QA, one UAT deployment, one production deployment. Maybe we can say like two for the all the 10 futures, right? Maybe the two UAT deployments, but only one production deployment. For all the 10 combined, we will be going only one release.
So every developer, and then after that they merge from the master, or
No,
they
they won't.
once after they.
Yeah, they don't need to, because right, they already merged with develop branch, so that all of their code will be available in develop. And from the develop we are raising the pull request to master, right? So all the 10 codes will be there in the master also.
Okay, so basically the developers thing will be like to keep it in merge with the dev.
Yeah, maybe the developer, yeah, they will be merging with dev. For example, for all the 10 developers, right, for all the
Mhm.
codes they will be merging from their future branch to develop branch. Okay, but when we are merging from develop to master, right, so all the 10 codes will be there, right, all the 10 features will be there.
Okay.
Okay, so then from that master branch all the 10 features will be there. And then the same build, whatever we are deployed in the UAT, the same build number we will be pushing it to production as well.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one, right, yeah, we will see release pipeline. So for example, I'm creating a new release pipeline. uh, I am naming it like dev app service deploy. Okay. Okay, so this is creating as a new release. So I'm creating a new release pipeline here. So here we are choosing Azure App Service Deployment. Okay, I'm naming it like App Service Deployment. Okay, and then so here, right, so we have created one maybe stage here. And then but anyway, right, so before that we can create the artifact first. Okay, so from where we have the artifact. Okay, so for example here there are many options, right? For example, Azure artifacts, GitHub release, Azure container registry, Docker Hub, and even from the Jenkins also they are having it here. Okay, but from our side, because we are having the artifact in our the build, the Azure pipeline, that particular build, right? So that we are choosing this option. Okay, so here the project is resource tracker, and then we need to choose the build pipeline here. So I think this is our build pipeline we have just created, right? So that is assignment service build. Okay, so in this particular so in this particular build pipeline, we have all the reference of the previous build, the artifact, everything. So from there we are getting the artifact, and then we are deploying in the Azure App Service and all. Okay, so you are clear, right, Amos and my broad? So here I'm just choosing the build pipeline. So in this build pipeline, we have the reference to the artifact and all, like the build number 25, 26 and all, right? So we can just select it and then we can deploy it. Okay, yeah, maybe when
Yeah.
we are running the deployment, yeah, you will get understood better.
Mhm.
So for example here, right, so I'm just configuring the app service. So currently, right, so yeah,
So where did you define the build number?
but
That
yeah,
should be on the artifact, right?
no. So for example, in the pipelines, right, maybe, yeah, first we can finish that one and then we can come to the question. Almost okay. So maybe we can just finish that one,
Okay.
because in that maybe in the build, right, we can also see like so how we can name the build and all, like whether you want to build 1 2 3, or maybe the date timestamp format, so something we can do that. Yeah, maybe after completing this one and then we can go to the build pipeline again. Okay, so for example, so here we have chosen the build pipeline reference, and then here we want to configure the app service and all. Okay, maybe we have created the one app service in Azure, right? So that one here we have to reference it. Okay, And so by default, right, so like the connection type ARM manager something. And here, right, from that when we are adding the default task, here it is asking the subscript, maybe the subscription and the app service name by default. Okay, so for example, the both the login, right, so here also tamilselvan.selapan@gmail.com, and even my Azure portal also I'm using the same Gmail account. Okay, so that by default it will it will get the Azure subscription automatically. So if not, yeah, maybe we have to yeah, by default it will bring all the available subscription. Okay, so that's why I'm choosing the Azure Pass sponsorship subscription, because I'm already configured this one, so that here it is showing. But otherwise, right, if you are choosing here, it will ask you for authorize. Okay, so here so once you click on authorize, it will ask you to sign in. So upon successful sign in, you will automatically added into the Azure service connection, so that you can choose the service connections wherever it is required. Okay, because I'm already configured, I'm just choosing this one. Okay, and then here our we are choosing web app on Windows, right? So we have chosen web app on Linux platform, so app service, and we have chosen the Linux platform only, so that's I'm choosing the web app on Linux. Okay, so here it will automatically bring the app service name also. So this is the app service name we have created, so I'm just choosing this one. So that's it. So currently when we are saving it, right, so after that when we are running it, so it will be deployed into the particular app service environment. Okay, so now you are good with this one, right? Like this is the default task, and here I'm just selecting the Azure subscription, and then I'm just choosing whether the that one is like web app on Windows or Linux or function app. But when we are configuring the Azure app service account, we have chosen the web app on Linux, so that's why I'm choosing this one. Okay, and then app service name we are choosing here, and then this one and all, right, like a package or folder. So it will automatically because we are referring the artifact name, right, so that is in the zip format. Okay, so by default it will be taken this one, and then it will be pushed to the Azure environment. So I am just to click on save. Okay, so now I'm coming to the pipeline. So okay, I think we didn't name it. Okay, so this is the one we have created, right? Maybe I'm Azure App Service Deploy. Okay, so this is the name I'm just providing. So for example, what I am doing is like okay, so currently I have saved, then I am clicking on create release. Okay, so in this place, right, it is showing the build version like 27 or 26, but for that particular build, right, so so the 27 and 26 is available. So here you can choose which version you need to be deployed into the deployment environment. So now you got it right, Amos. So for example,
Yeah,
here the 27 is there, so that whatever the zip is created for the 27, so it will be deployed to the app service environment. Okay, maybe if you want to deploy the previous environment, you can choose the previous 26 bill, so that corresponding the zip file will be downloaded.
got it.
Okay, so now I am clicking on create. Okay, so I think we didn't yeah, I'm clicking on the create here. So currently, right, so it is deploying now. It is queued state. So I think it will take maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Maybe so while it is deploying, so we can see what is the expected output from our API. Okay, our code. Okay, I'm going to pipeline, sorry, repos, and so this is our source code, right? So we have the API project. Okay, and inside that we have the controller. So we have the only one controller. So when we are creating the default .NET Core project, right? So this is the template which will be created. Okay. So for example, this is the endpoint, our application endpoint, and apart from that, we have to append API/values. So when we are hitting this particular endpoint, we will be getting the value 1 and value 2. So this is our response. It would be we would get this is the response. Okay. So this is the API controller, and along with our API endpoint, we need to append API/values, because this is the name of our controller. Okay. So when we are combining with API endpoint, we will be getting the value 1, value 2 as the response. So if you are getting this one, then our deployment is successful. Okay, I think still it is running. So successfully deployed web package to app service. Okay, so our application, the deployment is successful. So I am going to resource group here, so this is our resource group, right? So inside that, we have two resource. One is for app service plan and another one is app service. So here, so this is our application. Okay, so you can check whether our application is up and running here. Okay, so our application is running, because if you want, you can start or stop or restart, you can do. And this is our application endpoint. Okay, I'm just copying this one. So as per our code, we just need to append API/values, right? So when we are adding this one, it needs to return value 1, value 2 as the response. Okay, so this one, the response is it is returning. Okay, so this is just like a hello world project, so that's why we are just returning value 1, value 2. But the concept is for applies for the big projects also. Maybe if you want to interact with the database, if it wants to return any kind of JSON or complex JSON something, so the same thing. So if it is working for this application, the same it will be work for the other complex the response structure also. But currently, right, in our source code, we are just having the two methods. Okay, so just that is why I'm just showing this one as the example one. Okay, so almost you're on Mebron, so you're good with this one, right?
Yeah, I am so far okay.
Yeah. So, okay, Amos, maybe currently, right? So we have created the build and the deployment pipeline for .NET Core web application, and then we have deployed into the Azure App Service. So far, right? So we have used the classical editor. Maybe the tomorrow, right? We can see how we can configure the same with YAML pipelines.
Okay,
Okay. So okay, team. So
sounds good.
already, yeah, already the time is up. So we can wind up the session. So maybe we will see tomorrow. Okay. So thanks for
Okay.
joining. Good night, everyone.
All right. Bye. Good night. Thank you.